Good morning, my darlings. I hope that you are warm inside and enjoyed your snow day yesterday. I am joining you from the comfort and warmth of my own home. And as per instructed, I am giving you something to do that is not too terribly time consuming, but it's not busy work. So I'm basically going to give you the notes and the lecture that you guys were going to get in class via YouTube. So I want to, because last week, I'm getting all tongue-tied. Last week, I introduced you all to Shakespeare, the author, the Elizabethan theater, the Globe, that type of thing. And today, I want to basically introduce you to our play and our characters, the setting, and the themes, because this play is going to be difficult enough with the language that I think it's going to be easier if you have some kind of foreknowledge going into the reading of our play. So, without any further ado, I think it is worth noting that this idea of star-crossed lovers who reach an ultimate, terrible, tragic fate is not new to Shakespeare. He was inspired by a number of classical texts, Pyramus and Thisbe, Aeneas and Dido, Lancelot and Guinevere, Tristan and Isolde, and of course, as you are familiar with from our reading of Dante's Inferno, Francesca da Rimini and Paolo Malatesta, which of course you might not be familiar with Pyramus and Thisbe or this idea of Tristan and Isolde, but all of these people are in relationships that are, for lack of a better word, forbidden in some sort of way. Pyramus and Thisbe is I want to say Babylonian. I have to check, but I think it's Babylonian. Don't remember. But it's about these two people who are from feuding families who talk through a crack in a wall. They decide to meet, and ultimately one is attacked by a she lion, and the other one kills themselves. It's a very terrible, tragic story. And then, of course, you are familiar with Lancelot and Guinevere. Guinevere, of course, married to King Arthur, who falls in love with Lancelot. And, of course, the affair gets out. It leads to an eruption of chaos in Camelot, and Lancelot and Guinevere. Guinevere goes to a nunnery. Lancelot goes to a monk. What is it? Where monks live? Monastery, yes, and they both end their days apart and sad. And then, of course, you all are familiar with Francesca and Paolo. She was told to marry somebody she didn't love. She fell in love with her brother-in-law, and of course, it ends in death and suicide. So, this is not original. This idea is not original to Shakespeare, but he takes these stories to create something to to provide commentary on contemporary issues. So this story was written, like we talked about, in Elizabethan England, and politically and socially speaking, in the 1580s, England has been ravished by plague. They've lost 50% of their population to disease. But more importantly, it's during the height, I don't want to say the height, but it's in the middle of the Catholic or Protestant Reformation, or as my priest likes to say, the Protestant Revolt. But there is this huge Catholic and Protestant divide in England at the time, because of course we go from being a Catholic nation to a Protestant nation. Elizabeth's father, right, Henry VIII, the one who is famous for creating the Church of England and declaring England a Protestant state so he can divorce his wife and have a legitimate heir. And Elizabeth herself wasn't, and we talked about this, Elizabeth wasn't even accepted by devout Catholics as the rightful heir of the throne because she was an illegitimate queen, so they said. But despite this, there is this Catholic and Protestant divide, and I think that it is kind of on the nose to say that This divide between the two households represents the Catholic and the Protestant houses of England, if you will, because there is much prosecution and death on both sides of the fence, depending on who was monarch in between Henry VIII and Elizabeth, and people were not allowed to practice in the way that they wanted to practice their religion and all of this. So it's worth noting that the whole point is that people were dying, right, for something that Shakespeare, I think, sees as silly as this difference of religion, or this difference of practice. So anyways, Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare's retelling of these classical tales of star-crossed lovers, was written and directed and performed during a time that was characterized by fear, disease, and incredible tension between two sides of a fence. And he uses this story to make those comments on these contemporary issues. But because of the danger of writing too much truth or criticizing a queen or criticizing the government, his plays would have been scrutinized and censored, and it probably wouldn't have been safe for him to make these comments outrightly. So in order to do that, he sets the play in a remote time. We are going back into the past. We are in the 13th, 14th century, and we are also not in England. We are in the fair city of, or in the town of Verona, Mantua specifically, and that's in the kind of Italian, the northern part of Italy, and it is a very rich and elegant city. And in that city, the premise, of course, is this kind of family feud of star-crossed lovers, the Montagues and the Capulets, that have this ancient grudge that has been worsened over time, right? So this has gone on for hundreds of years, as we'll find out in our prologue. But to give you kind of indication of the two kind of families here, we have Romeo's side. Yeah, that's prettier. We have Romeo's family, or the Montague, the House of Montague. And the people who comprise his side of this kind of feud, of course, we have Romeo. And Romeo is our tragic hero. And I introduced you guys to this concept last week when we talked about Shakespearean tragedies. And the focal character of any tragic or tragedy is a tragic hero. And Romeo, we can definitively say, is our tragic hero, because he is, of course, the protagonist of our play, but he also embodies the characteristics of a tragic hero. Remember, they are of nobility, and he is the son of an important Verona family. He is very well liked. He has many friends, and he has a flaw that leads ultimately to his downfall. He makes choices by his own free will that lead to devastating consequences. And for Romeo, this flaw is this kind of rash behavior that is indicative of his youth, right? He is a 16-year-old boy who just kind of wants to be with the chicks, with the ladies. He's in love with the idea of being in love. And because of that, he makes these kind of he doesn't think before he acts. And of course, one of the more important characteristics of this tragic hero is that by the end of the play, we will pity him. We will feel bad for Romeo. Like I said, he is 16 years old. He's interested in ladies, and one of these things that's noteworthy is that he's kind of an emo guy. He's pretty emotional. He gets in his feelings a lot, and you'll see, especially in our first act, that he is incredibly sad, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So that's Romeo Montague. And then we get Romeo's parents, Lord Montague, who is very much concerned over his son's sadness, his melancholy behavior. He doesn't understand it. And then we have Romeo's mother, who is this peace-loving character, who very much dislikes the violence of the feuds. It concerns her. Next, we have Romeo's boys. I like to call these two characters. We have Benvolio, who is Romeo's cousin on his father's side. And his name, if you look at it, give me a second. His name, this Ben or Bene, is Latin for good, and Volo is Latin for wishes. So his name literally means well wisher. He is a good kind of guy, and he attempts to keep the peace between Romeo and Tybalt, as it were, with his role as this kind of mediator or well wisher. We also have Mercutio, who is not related to Romeo. He is just a friend of his. And his name, wouldn't you know, it comes from Mercury, or this idea to be mercurial, which means that he is unpredictable in change of temper or mood. He's very kind of I don't want to say bipolar, but you can think of Mercutio as this kind of bipolar character. When he's high, he's high. When he's low, and it can change on a drop of a dime. And while I have him placed in the side of the Montagues because he is one of Romeo's friends. I think it's important to notice, or important to recognize, that he has allegiance to neither house, neither the Montagues or the Capulets, because of his relationship to the Prince of Verona, or Prince Aeschylus, who I'll introduce you to in just a second. Next and finally, we have Rosalind, who is Romeo's love interest at the beginning of the play. She is also a Capulet, a member of the Capulet family. And the reason that they can't be together is because Rosalind wishes to be a nun. And of course, we know that nuns can't get married because they are married to the church. So it would not be, this is kind of unlikely, besides the fact that she's a Capulet. This idea of her being a nun is something that prevents them from being together. The last kind of guy who is in Romeo's court is Friar Lawrence, and he is a priest and friend to Romeo, and he plays a major role in the development and coordination of Romeo's relationship with Juliet. He's actually the priest that marries him, or marries them, and he tries to give aid and comfort and to be that kind of mediating peace factor as well. So, in addition to the House of Montague, we have Juliet's family, or the House of Capulet. I'll erase that because that's kind of ugly. And of course, the head of this household is, or the main character, our protagonist, number 2, our tragic heroine, if you will, or you can make the argument that she is an antagonist to Romeo, is Juliet, and she is 13 years old. She is naive and obedient to her family, and her youth and her inexperience is very much emphasized and highlighted by Shakespeare, to kind of give this coming of age story in a way, but to also kind of give this indication of the rash decisions that is youth, and maybe the follies that go with it. So we have Juliet. We have her parents. We have Lord Capulet, who is very quick-tempered and impetuous, and Lady Capulet, who is, unlike Romeo's mother, this kind of not very loving. She kind of lacks these motherly instincts, and when a member of her own family dies, she becomes very vengeful. She is not the same peacekeeping woman. We have Tybalt, who is Juliet's cousin on her mother's side, and his name, I just think it's fun, means King of Cats. He is very hot-tempered, and of all of the people who are on this side of the feud, he has this kind of strongest sense of honor. He's got to fight for the name of the House of Capulet. And what Friar Lawrence is to Romeo, Juliet has the nurse. And in addition to being this kind of motherly figure for Juliet, because she has nurtured and raised Juliet from the time that she was a baby, and this kind of confident and messenger go between Romeo and Juliet, the nurse is going to be one of our characters who is a comic relief. And remember, we talked about that in one of the elements of Shakespearean tragedy, is that there's always this kind of element of comedy to kind of give us this pause in the heightened kind of gravity of emotions that we will be feeling throughout. She's going to make us laugh. And we have a number of other characters in our play that I will introduce you to. And those characters are Prince Aeschylus. He is the ruler of Verona. He's the prince of Verona. He has very little patience for the family feud, and he does his best to kind of quash it. He's gonna set a precedent at the very beginning of the play that is going to have dire consequences towards Act 3. We have Count Paris, who is this very attractive, handsome nobleman, and he wishes to marry Juliet. And this relationship is very much encouraged by Juliet's family, mainly because he's someone in society, because he is related to the Prince of Verona. We have Gregory and Samson, who are the Capulet servants, and we have Abram and Balthasar, who are the Montague servants. And finally, the kind of last character that I want to kind of introduce you to is the chorus. And the chorus is a character who, I say character very loosely, that is not part of the action, but instead it's kind of a speaker who comes on stage to make comments on the action, to let us and explain to us what's going on, but also mirror our thoughts, right? They are going to say things that we're probably thinking, and that is going to help kind of guide us through the watching of, or it would guide an audience through the watching, but it's going to guide us through our reading of the play. And before I say adios to you all, I want to talk very quickly about the plot structure and our timeline of the play. Our timeline is basically all of this happens in the span of a week. We begin on a Sunday and we end on a Thursday. The best way that I can kind of discuss this is if you think about the basic kind of plot triangle, plot structure that. Oh, this is going to be horrible. Please forgive me. I had intended to do this. Oh, this is horrible and awful. So, it's ugly, I know, and I had planned to kind of draw this on the board instead of doing it here, but think about that basic elements of the plot structure that we talked about many moons ago. And the plot structure of a tragedy or our play is going to kind of follow the kind of narrative cycle of the exposition is going to be Act 1. Forgive me, I'm drawing with my little trackpad. And then our rising action is going to be Act 2. That kind of building of suspense. Our climax, the peak of no return, the height of the action, is going to be Act 3. And then the falling action, the decrease of intensity, the kind of downfall of it all is going to be Act 4. And then our resolution the closing and the kind of catharsis or cathartic moment is going to be in Act 5. So Act 1 is going to begin on a Sunday, and it is going to be Sunday morning, and Act 1 is going to take us through Sunday evening, into the late Sunday evening. We'll begin at the fair streets of Verona and end at the Capulet House. Act 2 is going to be early Monday morning and um, into Monday afternoon. And then Act 3 is going to be Tuesday. Well, Monday evening into Tuesday. It is the longest of our acts because, of course, it's the climax. And then Act 4 is going to be Tuesday through Wednesday. And Act 5 is going to take us into Thursday. So, like I said, this is the worst week ever for these families and for Romeo and Juliet because they are very much alive and well by Sunday, and by Thursday they are dead and gone. So, that is our timeline. That is the structure of our tragedy. And that is where I am going to stop to our little introduction here. I do want to take note before I forget that I want you to keep in mind these ideas of love, hate, fate, and the kind of foolhardiness of it all. And we will pick up on Friday and we will begin our play with the prologue. But in the meantime, what I would like for you all to do, I hope it goes without saying that take notes on all of this. I am going to check it's 4th grade. On Friday, when I see you, I will check to see that you have taken these notes. And I am also giving you a little quiz to go along with this video, just to kind of give you something, a little grade in the grade book. It's easy if you watch this, and if not, it won't be so easy. But if you watch this, take this little quiz on who's who, and then I will see you on Friday. Please email me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. I hope you guys stay warm. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your kind of virtual snow day, and I will see you. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, but I'll see you in class on Friday.